Congresswoman Marjorie Taylor Greene, you brought a bill to the floor to try to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas, partly because of what you're hearing from Christopher Olivares, all of these people coming into the border. Why are they allowing this, and what happened with your bill?
Well, 8 Republicans joined with the Democrats, Maria, to kill the articles of impeachment I brought to the floor against Secretary Mayorkas, and it's absolutely outrageous. I serve on the Homeland Committee. We have had hearing after hearing, listening to parents cry over their children murdered by fentanyl. I mean, we are wondering how many dead American bodies are going to have to pile up before Republicans in Congress get serious about impeaching Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas.
What's up, everybody? Major Retired Richard Ojeda here, and Fox News host Maria Bartiromo was stuck in the middle of 2 jokers over the weekend on an episode of Sunday Morning Futures. Bartiromo was joined by Texas Department of Public Safety spokesperson Lieutenant Christopher Olivares and Marge the Trainwreck Greene to discuss immigration.
And the lieutenant here has told everyone the numbers and the statistics. Our country is in severe danger of having a terrorist attack right on our homeland as Americans are killed daily by the cartels flooding our country with illegal aliens. But Americans called and called. They flooded those congressmen's office with phone calls demanding impeachment of Mayorkas. And Maria, I will bring my articles of impeachment back to the floor after we get back from the Thanksgiving break. And this time, the Republicans in Congress better deliver different results. Mayorkas must be impeached and the invasion must stop.
MAGA loyalists always seem to paint our southern border in a negative light so that they can justify their inhumane treatment towards migrants, and this was no exception. Earlier this year, the Department of Justice was looking into troubling reports of inhumane treatment. Olivares had tried to misrepresent an email that a state trooper had made, alleging abuses of migrants. One of the claims made was that troopers that worked in problem areas were directed by their leadership to push back immigrants that were attempting to cross illegally. We've all probably seen some of the horrific footage. These extreme measures caused deaths. Remember the buoys that were placed at crossing points in the river and the razor wire that was laid out in rolls. Those were intentional actions that Texas leadership reported to be in good conscience with. These actions were cruel, and no amount of verbal gymnastics by Chris Olivares will change that. Olivares had doubled down on his department's defense of the measures. He downplayed the whistleblower's account of things and tried to say that officers may have misunderstood the orders to push back.
My articles of impeachment against Mayorkas have been sitting in committee on a shelf collecting dust. 4 of the 8 Republicans that voted with Democrats serve on the Judiciary Committee, and that showed that they aren't really for impeachment like they say they are. They were claiming they wanted the committee process, but they're not bringing the committee process when the articles of impeachment are sitting there not moving through committee.
Since Texas Governor Greg Abbott and the Texas Department of Public Safety have been working together, they have bused over 12,500 immigrants to Washington, D.C. and over 23,000 to New York City. Abbott worked with Trump to cage children and separate families, all in the name of freedom. So, when Chris Olivares hypes up claims that criminals are pouring across the border and pose a threat to public safety, it's to justify the drownings and traumatic injuries sustained by people who are desperately escaping poverty and war in their own country. They are seeking a better life. The innocent people that died as a result of these cruel measures didn't deserve it, but MAGA nutjobs find it very easy to justify their death. Not long ago, the heartbreaking story of a 3-year-old child that drowned made national headlines. A little boy who was traveling with his family died as a result of the blockades that had been placed in the river by Texas authorities. This child was not a criminal. He was an innocent victim of a hate-filled agenda that targets people who can't even defend themselves. The GOP willfully ignore these facts and dismiss human life as unworthy. It's not surprising that former Trump speechwriter Stephen Miller has been one driving forces behind impeachment attempts to oust DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas. Marge the Trainwreck Greene echoed his border policy to Maria Bartiromo and tried to say that her efforts to impeach Mayorkas was derailed because 8 Republicans voted with the Democrats and shot her stupid idea down. She callously asked, how many American bodies are going to have to pile up before something is done? Don't know, Marge, how many American bodies piled up during the COVID-19 pandemic while your worthless rear end was spewing conspiracies about Dr. Fauci and the COVID vaccine? Marge and the rest of the GOP need to quit pretending that they are pro-life. They are the farthest thing from it. Marge the Trainwreck Greene and Chris Olivares are peddling a narrative that makes it easier for brainwashed MAGA morons to overlook the unhinged cruelty that's being perpetrated by extremists like Greg Abbott. Remember that Donald Trump and his enablers like Stephen Miller want everyone to think that there is absolute lawlessness going on.
We need Republicans in Congress that are willing to hold people accountable, not just talk the tough talk on TV and have 5-minute hearings and write strongly worded letters. We have the lieutenant and his men are on the front lines every day. We have people that are murdered working for America, trying to defend our country, from Border Patrol to ICE to law enforcement. And Americans are suffering this, and we're on the verge of having a terrorist attack on our own soil. Maria, we have to hold Mayorkas accountable. He must be impeached, and we have to continue to go after the Biden administration for this failure to protect our country.
It's a tactic that appeals to people's fight or flight reactions. If Stephen Miller, Marge the Trainwreck Greene, and Greg Abbott can convince people that they are in danger from immigrants, it makes it easier to get support from people who fall for the nonsense. Why is Marge and other jackaloons calling for the secretary's impeachment anyway? It's a manufactured scheme. We have GOP nutjobs like Marge and Chris Olivares trying to say that there's not enough being done about fentanyl coming across the border, but they never talk about GOP Senator Marsha Blackburn's legislation that made it harder to make arrests when it comes to fentanyl smuggling. The hypocrisy of Blackburn's vote against help for substance abuse treatment while ignoring her role in an opioid epidemic in her own state is an example of the two-tiered system of justice that GOP jackaloons are always bellyaching about. It's always a do as I say, not as I do situation to Republicans, and they want to dictate, not lead by example. They are always the ones pitching a fit over drugs being smuggled in by criminals or replaying short clips of people running an infrared filter, but it's all for show. The 3-year-old child that drowned in Rio Grande wasn't guilty of anything. He was swept away by the water when his family tried to cross in deeper water because of razor wire and a water blockade. Marge's idea of governing is harassing the Biden family or other officials with outrageous allegations. She's not interested in crafting legislation that would benefit her economically challenged district. Instead, she wants to be the master of ceremonies in an idiotic 3-ring circus that's hell-bent on chaos and confusion. The simple truth of the matter is that Marge doesn't know how to legislate. She doesn't know how to do the job that she was sent to Washington, D.C. to do. She is an absolute disgrace and a phony. The 8 Republicans that voted against Marge didn't side with the Democrats. They simply voted against the extremist plot to waste time and money on a sham. Marge is a failure all on her own. She doesn't know anything about creating opportunities for her constituents. She thinks that this moronic sideshow is what they want. And sadly, in many cases in her district, that may be true. Marge is the definition of a train wreck that's gone off the rails. And that is an absolute fact. Sappers clear the way, airborne all the way.